welcome to Viewpoints. I'm Patrick O'Flynn, your guest host for this edition. We're joined today by Brian Duggan, Fire Chief and Emergency Manager for the City of Northampton, Massachusetts. Brian, welcome to Viewpoints.
Thank you, Pat. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Well, tell us a little about the City of Northampton, Massachusetts.
Northampton is a city in western Massachusetts, a mid-sized city where we've evolved into providing some regional fire and EMS services. And through that, I've been able to observe emergency operations across much of the state and also focus on my thesis topic, which is enhancing decision-making during the initial period of surge events.
Well, what inspired you to pursue this topic?
I've been a member of the Massachusetts Fire Mobilization Committee for about 20 years and serving as a chief in Massachusetts for 25. Through that, what I've been able to do is go to many of the larger incidents across the state. And my observation in bringing large cadres of resources to those incidents is that the decision-making styles varied, where very competent fire officers could be doing either exceptionally well, or in some cases were overwhelmed by the events that they faced. Specifically, the particular impetus for this was a series of tornadoes that ravaged western Massachusetts, resulting in the largest mobilization that the state has ever had. And with that, the observations that I had led to the focus on the need to enhance decision-making, not only for fire, but for all disciplines during the initial operational period of surge events.
Well, is there a certain criteria or baseline for how decisions are made at these type of incidents?
Typically through research, decisions are made based on experience, based on sort of the commander's ability to process information and pull things together. It's usually from comprehension through projection. So first they have to comprehend the situation through situational analysis and then project how the situation may go to come up with an appropriate action plan.
In your thesis, you mentioned surge events. What exactly is a surge event?
A surge event is an event that is well beyond the normal capacity that a community encounters on a day in, day out basis. It's typically marked by being either complex or chaotic and of such a scale that the community really does not have the resources to adequately prepare for it.
You mentioned experts and novices. Can you expound on that a little bit?
That was actually one of the most controversial parts of my thesis, and it built upon a premise through a literature review that found that people, even though they can be seasoned experts in one context, such as a seasoned fire officer facing a residential structure fire, can transition to become a novice when facing a far different event, such as a tornado or an earthquake or something that they haven't faced and are not familiar with. I provided a number of examples in my thesis. One was the fact that you're qualified to drive a motor vehicle doesn't mean that someone's necessarily a qualified race car driver. And I also drew from the crash of Air France 447, which went into the Atlantic Ocean. That crash specifically resulted from a co-pilot who was at the controls and started applying principles that weren't appropriate to the situation because he didn't have the relative experience.
Well, it's fascinating that you can apply and transmit from one situation to another. What research methodology did you use in the development of your thesis?
I used what's called a Delphi method, and that's sort of searching for the wisdom of experts to come up with sort of collaborative solutions. And in my case particularly, I did a 3-tier Delphi process where questions were asked of 32 chief fire officers with a minimum of 15 to 25 years of experience ranging across the country. These people were well respected in their field and participated in these 3 surveys. One survey would build on another, and they were provided information after the first survey to clarify the questions as we went forward. So consensus was built throughout the process, and that's how we sort of drew from the research into some tangible results. One of the things I should stress is this was done on a fire platform, and obviously that's my primary lens of experience. But in terms of Homeland Security, this could be applied whether it's a public works platform, a public health platform, or a law enforcement platform. Specifically, the recent shootings in Aurora, Colorado had many of the same characteristics that I found through this research that could be applied both to law enforcement and emergency medical services.
So many of the disciplines would benefit from reviewing your research.
Absolutely.
That's great. Now, what are some of the key findings from the research?
Well, there are a number of findings. We produced a list of 18 decision points or items that someone could use to determine if an event is becoming non-routine and moving to that chaotic stage where it becomes that surge event. So there is sort of a checklist that I developed, which we'll talk about a little later, I hope. But that focuses on giving a tool that people can look and see there are 18 different symptoms that would say you're getting away from the norm and the routine and need to start approaching things a little bit differently. In addition to that, some of the other findings were that people are interested in learning, but that we don't do a good job among any discipline, whether it's law enforcement or fire, sharing information. So once a lesson is learned, it's often not well transmitted or well received, and that's something I think we need to work on across the country. Specifically, one example is Hurricane Sandy, where there were lessons learned from Hurricane Katrina or the Florida hurricanes, yet these are now being learned in the New Jersey, New York area because they hadn't had the experience before.
That's an excellent point. Now, I know that through your comparative perspective, you used the German incident command system. What were some of the points you learned from that?
That was an opportunity that I really appreciated that was provided through my involvement with CHDS, and it was the opportunity to compare the National Incident Management System with what's called DV100, which is the German Incident Management System. One of the things I found is each could benefit from learning or looking at the other. So there were things that could be exported into the German system that may help, and there were several things that could be imported into NIMS that may make it a more versatile system. Specifically, DV100 on the German side, it takes a much more collaborative and humanistic approach, where NIMS is much more structured, and DV100 also provides immediate support from the smallest incident to the largest. One of the things I found in the American system is there are informal support networks that are not well organized, where at the very basic level, the German system provides a 3-person support team. So out of that came 10 different areas that we put into the Delphi survey. And we asked the participants of these 10 areas, which would you be open to adopting? I was actually pleased that there was a high level of potential adoption, that 8 out of the 10, the majority of participants said they would consider adopting into NIMS and felt it would be beneficial.
So Brian, I wonder if you could share with our viewers some of the surprises that you might have found during your research.
Absolutely. One of the biggest surprises is that as we polled the Delphi panel, which again is 32 chief fire officers from across the country, there were a number of surprises that came out of that. One was they felt that sort of there was the opportunity to learn from past events that wasn't well broadcast across the country or well received. 2 was that there was an open environment that they really looked forward to embracing some of the things that would come out of that learning. That's something I didn't expect. Another thing I didn't expect is we asked people as they're facing these asymmetric events, so these wicked problems that face them that are not familiar, would they change their decision-making style? My initial expectation was that most people would. However, the survey bore out that 25% of people would in fact hold to their initial decision-making style no matter what the event produced. And then the final one was we asked people about the National Incident Management System, and was this a good system to manage these problematic incidents, these surge events as I call them. And 40% of folks said that in fact there were opportunities to improve NIMS, and while it was a good platform for incident command and working with multiple disciplines, that for true multi-agency collaboration, it lacked the flexibility and the ability to be creative to then adapt to these changing events.
Well, in talking with incident command, how do you feel your research can assist and support incident commanders?
I think this is a perfect platform to go beyond just the fire service and go to all levels of incident command that are outlined in NIMS and be a teaching platform, a teaching tool. One of the things I hope to do with this is take some examples and couple the examples with this research to produce a seminar that can either be online or delivered in person. And I think that's one of the most valuable things. The other thing that I've done is develop what's called a quick action guide. And taking the 300 pages of my thesis and distilling it down into 3 pages, which really offers 3 things. One, what are the symptoms that an event is becoming a surge event or becoming non-routine? 2, what are some possible strategies that an incident commander may not think of but could quickly look through and determine that it would match the event and then employ? And 3, what are some innovative ideas that people could consider when faced with these events?
Now, is the quick action guide primarily for fire chiefs and fire commanders, or is it something that also can be shared among all the disciplines?
Right now, it's actually geared for the fire service. It's actually been adopted by the Massachusetts Fire Mobilization Committee as a document that will go to all the task force leaders within Massachusetts. However, if you look at it, most of the things are fairly generic and with a little tweaking could be adapted to any discipline. And truly that's my goal and my hope, is to create a working document and a guide that would be a tool for people, not only in the fire service, but well beyond.
Well, I want to thank Brian Duggan, Fire Chief and Emergency Manager for the City of Northampton, Massachusetts, for joining us today. And we're going to be hopefully seeing you with great things in the future.
Thank you, Pat. I appreciate being here, and certainly the challenge and opportunity that CHDS has provided that made this possible.
Well, that does it for this edition of Viewpoints. Thank you for joining us.